A cloud will make two suns appear. A white cloud of smoke that comes from a chimney that's been placed on the roof of the Sistine Chapel during a papal conclave. That cloud will cause two suns to appear in the Vatican. The Pope is the physical representation of Jesus Christ, the Son of God on earth. Here you have two suns living in the Vatican for the first time ever. Pope Benedict announced his intention to vacate the See of Rome and the See of St. Peter on February 11, 2013. It was the first time a pope had retired since, 1415, and that was Gregory XII, but he was forced out to end the Western Schism. The only willing pope to retire was Celestine V in 1294, and that was only after 5 months because he didn't like it. He wanted to go back to being a monk. But nothing like this has happened since Nostradamus' day, and that's when we keep track from. During a papal conclave, smoke signals from a chimney on the roof of the Sistine Chapel indicate whether a new pope has been elected. If no decision has been made, the voting ballots are burned with a material that produces a black smoke. If a new pope has been elected, such as on February 13th at 7:06 p.m., the ballots are burned with a material to produce a white smoke, signaling to the awaiting world outside that the wait is over. Habemus Papam. We have a pope. Francis was the first non-European pope in 13 years, and that had been a Syrian priest. It was Gregory III from the Byzantine era. He died in 741. So nothing like this has ever been heard of. This guy came from the New World, they used to call it back then. Across the pond, they call it now. But he is the first pope from the Americas. He's also the first pope to choose a non-Roman name. Every other pope has always chosen a Roman name. He chose Francis after Francis of Assisi, an Italian saint who swore a life of poverty, which is ironic because the Pope is an elected monarch of the Papal See. Let's take a look at the quatrain that Nostradamus gives us about the event. It's Quatrain 241. The great star will burn for 7 days. A cloud will make two suns appear. The big mastiff will howl all night when the great pontiff changes territory. Now, the evening Benedict XVI made his announcement, St. Peter's Basilica was struck by lightning. Not once, but twice. So we understand it is the cloud of smoke coming from the Sistine Chapel that will cause two suns to appear. And you can see how big that cloud gets and how big the crowd gets to wait to meet the new pope. And that's the first time they know who the pope is, when he comes walking out on that balcony. That's the first chance they get a glimpse of him or to know who he is. And that's when they found out the great papal changes territory. But who's the big mastiff? Well, you can't even finish typing in God's Rottweiler to the Google search engine, and up comes Pope Benedict. Before he was Pope, he was Joseph Ratzinger, the Cardinal from Bavaria. And it was Pope John Paul II who made him prelate. He made him head of the Holy Office, which is what eventually had become what became of the Inquisition. So he was basically getting the position that had become of the Grand Inquisitor. Only it had a new name. He had started out as a liberal reformer, but at this point he was known as a conservative hardliner, and as prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, he acted as the Vatican's doctrinal watchdog to protect the Church from heresy. He was there to enforce strict doctrinal positions and remove any members who didn't comply. So to understand why he would howl all night after retiring, you would need to understand the Vati Leaks scandal. It all came out in 2012 because of Benedict's butler leaking documents to the press, and to a writer in particular who wrote a book about it. And it became big news in every major outlet all around the world. It was all about the members of the Roman Curia and the Vatican Bank being involved with banking scandals, money laundering, investment schemes, and other various crimes. It even got its own Wikipedia page. And why is that important? Because Nostradamus reads Wikipedia. The Roman Curia is the government of Vatican City and the administrative body of the Church as a whole. It is made up of many offices, dicasteries, and tribunals that handle everything that the Church needs to function, but especially the finances. Even Peter's Pence is under the Roman Curia. Benedict had been a member of the Curia for the 20 years before becoming a pope. He had been John Paul's right-hand man. You would think he would know all about John Paul's dealings with the Vatican Bank's money, but he didn't, because he was Bavarian. And for the most part, the inner circle of the Curia are known as the Party of Italians. The Curia had been running the Vatican for hundreds of years now and become its own force to be reckoned with. There were 4 popes before John Paul II who tried to reform the Curia, and, well, all 4 of them died of a heart attack in their sleep. So John Paul kind of left it up to himself, especially because his priority was to end communism, and that's another story that is in the Quatrains and the Epistle to King Henry. And the truth about Benedict is, well, the Party of Italians never really accepted the Bavarian. So Benedict brought in cardinals from the outside to do a secret investigation, which they did, and the subsequent 600-page report that they put together showed the things reported in the media were true. It showed that those who ran the Vatican, and in particular the Pope's closest collaborators, were guilty of widespread corruption, money laundering, and financial embezzlement. In addition, it outlined sex scandals that were going on, and that any and all individuals who had tried to alert Benedict were removed. Benedict was mortified. He spent a lot of time alone. He kept his decision to retire to himself, and he decided to keep the report a secret and only give it to the next pope. But the cardinals in the Curia, they all knew about it and had to wonder what it exactly said. Benedict knew everyone around him had lied to him. He didn't have a true friend in the Curia. Benedict had only one move left, and it was the one thing that no one expected: renunciation. If the Pope renounces his duties, the entire Curia will have to resign. So on February 11th, a Vatican holiday and the anniversary of the Vatican statehood, he announced to the united body of cardinals that he would leave his position as Pope and Bishop of Rome. He cited exhaustion and what he considered the inability for himself to continue the duties required of the Petrine ministry. He even believed that he would die within months, and his inner circle had been informed of exactly that. After his announcement, the cardinals were dumbfounded. They remained silent for a couple of minutes. They didn't know what to say, until the College of Cardinals Dean came up and spoke for them and asked them, "Are you sure? You sure you want to do this? I mean, you could change your mind, right?" And he said no. He said a prayer for them, and then he left. Arrivederci, boys. Good luck in your new positions. Having to be honest again. These men had lived lives of comfort and financial wealth and power for the last 30 years. And he had completely pulled the rug right out from under all of them, all at once. They would not only all lose their positions, but they would have to suffer the embarrassment and humiliation that the things in the press about them were true. And Pope Benedict, well, he finally got his chance to become the theologian and writer he had always wanted to be. Even though he thought he would only live a few months, it turned out he lived over 10 more years. Well, that's got to mean something. So what about that great star that burns for 7 days? Well, that would be Comet Pan-STARRS, which arrived in the second week of March and became visible to the naked eye as of March 7th. What makes it so great? Well, it came from the Oort cloud. They say it took maybe almost 100 million years to get here, and now it's stuck in an orbit of 110,000 years around the sun. So it's the first time mankind has witnessed they say it's a baby comet. It's named Pan-STARRS because it was discovered in 2011 by the Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System. So it gets called Pan-STARRS, the great star. Now, that's not the only star, the only comet that this system has ever found. But check out the nucleus on this comet. It's over a kilometer wide ball of rock and ice. That is a planet puncher. And you look here on the Watchers page about how the comet just becomes visible on Thursday, March 7th. Even NASA did a video about it so people would get a chance to see a naked eye comet. Because let's face it, what gets more hits for NASA than naked comets? And on the Watchers page, of course, they have its trajectory from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere, and that it is first visible in the northern hemisphere on March 7th. But the best days to see it will be on March 12th and 13th, when it's near the crescent moon. You check out the NBC News page and see what it says. And it says you'll be able to see it from the 7th, which was Thursday, and the best photo ops will be the 12th and the 13th, when Jorge Mario Bergoglio becomes the Pope who changes territories. And you can read all about it on its Wikipedia page. Why? Because Nostradamus reads Wikipedia, and he especially wants to point that out because unlike most of the things on Wikipedia, the stuff about him is just not accurate. Like this stuff here that says, as of mid-March 2013, the comet's brightness can't really be seen so much more. It needs to be seen in binoculars. So it was really available for 7 days, the peak of which was the day that the great papacy changed territories. But now, what makes it so great? Well, that be the Greek god, the great god Pan. Because, once again, Nostradamus, in many of his quatrains, is pointing to something he read. People will say, well, he copied this. No, he's actually making reference to many of these books. And this